Aston Martin brought in the most successful Formula One designer alive to rewrite their future. Today, Adrian Newey stands alone in Silverstone, risking everything on a 2026 car shaped by rules that will reset Formula One itself. One radical decision now could make or break the next 5 years. The stakes have never been higher. The question, why bet it all now, and what if he fails? Formula One's 2026 rulebook demands a total rethink of how a Grand Prix car is built and raced. Every team faces a clean slate. No 2025 parts can be carried over. That means 15,000 components must be redesigned from scratch. The new power units will run on fully sustainable fuel, with the internal combustion engine capped at 400 kilowatts and the electric MGU-K supplying up to 350 kilowatts, raising the electric share of total power from just 20% to nearly half. This hybrid split forces engineers to rethink energy management, packaging, and how power is delivered out of every corner. Aerodynamics are changing just as dramatically. The traditional drag reduction system disappears, replaced by active front and rear wings that shift between low drag and high downforce modes. These movable surfaces are controlled by standardized software, but each team must develop its own logic to unlock performance within strict legality windows. A flat floor replaces the previous underbody tunnels, cutting overall downforce by up to 30%, but making the car less sensitive to ride height and porpoising. To keep costs in check and prevent late-season arms races, the FIA has imposed a series of design freezes. The majority of aerodynamic and chassis development must be locked in months before the first race, with wind tunnel and simulation allocations front-loaded into 2025. This compressed timeline means every early decision carries enormous weight. For the first time in years, the competitive order is wide open. The grid's old hierarchy is wiped clean, and the smallest design insight could tip the balance for seasons to come. Adrian Newey's arrival at Aston Martin in early 2025 sent shockwaves through the Formula One paddock. For more than 3 decades, he was the architect behind 12 constructors' titles and 13 drivers' championships, first at Williams, then at Red Bull, where his designs delivered dominant cars like the R-Wars and RICE RB19. Yet, despite a record that spans over 200 Grand Prix wins, Newey walked away from the security of Red Bull's empire, drawn instead to the uncertainty of a fresh start. The 2026 regulations offered something few engineers ever experience: a genuine blank sheet. No legacy parts, no inherited compromises, just the chance to build a car from the ground up, shaped entirely by his vision. At Aston Martin, Newey took on the title of Managing Technical Partner, charged with unifying the team's aerodynamic, mechanical, and simulation departments. His influence extends beyond the drawing board. In 2026, he steps into the role of team principal, replacing Andy Cowell and overseeing the entire racing operation. This dual responsibility means the AMR26 will be the first car conceived, developed, and raced under his direct leadership. For Newey, the stakes are deeply personal. Every decision, from the first sketch to the final sign-off, carries his name. The promise of the AMR26 is not just technical, it is a test of whether Formula One's most decorated designer can reinvent both himself and a team under the most demanding conditions the sport has seen in a generation. Inside Aston Martin's new Silverstone facility, engineers faced a problem that no amount of investment could solve overnight. Data from the wind tunnel and the team's driver-in-the-loop simulator simply did not match. Calibration logs showed persistent discrepancies, sometimes 5 times larger than predicted, especially at critical ride heights. Software updates arrived in rapid succession, each one attempting to bring the simulator's virtual car closer to wind tunnel results, but the numbers refused to align. In one case, a 30mm ride height change produced entirely different downforce readings in simulation versus physical testing. Performance engineers pored over spreadsheets late into the night, searching for the source of the mismatch. Was it the tire model, the aero map, or a flaw in the tunnel's new measurement protocols, every theory meant more time lost, and every delay pushed key design decisions further down the timeline. The team's aerodynamicists and mechanical leads debated whether to freeze suspension points or hold out for better data, knowing that a single miscalculation could lock them into a flawed architecture for the entire 2026 season. As the weeks passed, the urgency grew. The AMR 26's floor and suspension tooling, already scheduled for production, had to be put on hold. Newey insisted on a complete rewrite of the simulation model before greenlighting any major parts. For a team racing the calendar as much as its rivals, every day spent chasing correlation was a day not spent building the car. The risk was no longer theoretical. It was written into the numbers on every screen. Tooling for the AMR 26 floor and suspension sat idle, waiting for a green light that never seemed to come. In the heart of the Silverstone facility, shop leads monitored deadlines as weeks slipped away. Each day without a finalized design meant another day the machine stayed silent, and another night the cost cap spreadsheet grew tighter. The team had already ordered the first batch of floor tooling in late spring, only to halt production and commission a second set after Newey demanded a more aggressive geometry. That decision alone forced a 6-week scramble. Old jigs were scrapped, new patterns rushed through procurement, and suppliers renegotiated on the fly. The pressure extended beyond the shop floor. With the FIA early design freezes looming, every late change threatened not just the schedule, but the team's ability to stay within the £145 million spending limit. Engineers debated whether to lock in suspension hardpoints or risk another tooling swap if the simulation numbers improved. The cost of a mistake was measured in both pounds and lost testing days. Newey's approach left no room for compromise. He refused to sign off on any part that did not match his vision, even if it meant burning through contingency funds and compressing the validation window to a matter of days. In one meeting, a lead machinist calculated that 2 rounds of tooling swaps had already consumed a quarter of the department's annual budget. The choice was stark: push the design envelope and chase potential performance, or settle for a car that was ready on time but fell short of its potential. At Aston Martin, the gamble was not just technical, it was financial, and every decision carried consequences that would echo through the season. The team was racing the clock and the rules, and time was not on their side. Adrian Newey's design process begins with a pencil and a blank sheet of paper. Every concept, from the outline of the nose to the sweep of the floor, starts as a hand-drawn sketch. These ideas move quickly into digital form, scanned, traced, and built out in TAD, where lines become surfaces and surfaces become structures. Within days, the first models are sent to the wind tunnel, not as finished parts, but as questions. How does this shape behave? Where does the airflow break away? Newey's workflow is relentless, cycling between sketch, simulation, and physical model, often looping back to the drawing board when the numbers don't match his intuition. He insists on integrating every discipline, mechanical, aerodynamic, hybrid power, at the earliest stage, refusing to let any department work in isolation. This approach demands constant revision, but it also means late changes are not signs of indecision. They are deliberate, born from a refusal to settle for anything less than the best possible solution, even as deadlines loom and pressure mounts. The schedule for AMR 26 now sits on a knife edge. By choosing to delay final sign-off until every simulation and wind tunnel number lines up, Newey has set the team on a path few rivals would dare to follow. The car is set for a February debut, late by the standards of a regulation reset, but not so late that competitors can easily reverse engineer its secrets before the first freeze deadlines. The design itself is laced with software-driven active aerodynamics, integrating hardware and control logic in ways that are nearly impossible to copy without months of groundwork. FIA regulations will soon lock down core aerodynamic and chassis elements for the entire season. And with most teams launching within the same narrow window, a unique concept unveiled at the last moment cannot be countered in time. If Newey's integration of software and hardware delivers, Aston Martin could hold an edge not just for 2026, but for the freeze-bound 2027 campaign as well. But if the numbers are wrong, the cost is more than just a slow start. It could mean 2 years locked into a flawed direction, with no chance to recover until the next rule change. Right now, every Formula One team faces the same rulebook, yet only one bets its future on a single vision. In an era where innovation is survival, Newey's gamble could redraw the grid for years. In Formula One, risk isn't optional. It is the only way forward.